Hello and welcome to today's art lesson, today's painting lesson. The photograph that I'm using today has a house in it, and it also has some bushes. It has a walkway in there. We'll get to use a bit of perspective when thinking about it, but a lot of it is just figuring out where the bigger shapes will go and how the composition is flowing. And of course, we'll look at the colors in making the bushes, especially the bushes. Let's see if I can point the other way. There, the bushes make them look more rounded. Okay, so in this composition, there is a pathway that starts about here, and then it's going to turn and go this way. There's a place for the house coming into view. Notice the way that the pathway points our eyes. It draws our eye in and points it this way, and I feel like the house kind of points, right? The roof points down this way, so our eyes end up here. If you zoom in on the picture, you will notice a rose bush right there with some pink roses on it. So I thought, aha, there's a good place for our eye to land, so to speak, and that could be the interesting thing that's happening, right? Our eye goes in, through, and then we see a rose bush. Okay, so dividing up the spaces, we have a big space for the bushes. It looks like they come over to here, and notice how the bushes on this side, it comes up above halfway. It's very big. We might be tempted to make that into a smaller area for the bushes. But then because this is bigger and then the house is smaller and the trees in the back are even smaller, it gives us that sense of going into space, going in perspective. Okay, so here's kind of where the bushes in the front are. Let me make sure I'm coming up to the right area. So it comes up about halfway. Okay, so maybe about up to here. And if I'm looking at it and thinking, oh, is this lighter or darker? Actually, some really dark parts and some sort of medium to lighter parts are in there. The pathway is light. There's a rose bush over here. The nice thing about that rose bush is it kind of keeps our eye in on the pathway a bit more. So if we include it, it directs our eye in instead of letting our eye go out. And then if you're wondering what that is, that's an overhang. That's also part of the building. Look at the angles when you see it. If you need to use something with a straight edge, like a ruler, when drawing onto your canvas, you can. Okay, but I'm just looking here. Where is everything going? The roof, like that. Okay, some columns. Oops, sorry, that's a slanted column there. Okay, the column is coming down. You have the trees behind the building. You have some bushes here. You have that rose bush. You have the pathway. And yes, there are some chairs and a pool there. That's not as big a part of what I'm going to focus on, but I think in the final one, I will put that in as well. Okay, so thinking about how things are directing our eyes, the light and dark areas help to direct our eyes, not just the line. So this area here is all quite dark, and then these sides, notice how the light is shining on the bushes, and then the part that is down on the edges of these bushes are dark areas. That's all kind of medium. And even the light areas of the bushes are slightly darker than the pathway, which helps to guide our eyes there. Okay. All right, and then we also notice some dark areas back here with the trees. And then also underneath here in the shade behind the column. So see that it moves your eye in that way. I'll put a little detail here on the underneath part of those bushes. Here we go, and ta-da! That's basically the idea that we're going to go for as far as the composition today. Now, let's take a look at mixing up some colors. We have our color chart here. Think about what color are the different areas, the sky, I'm not really pointing to it anymore. The sky, the house, the pathway, these plants, and then right over in here, a little bit of pink that I will be adding. So as I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, aha, okay, the bushes up in the front, they're very green, right? Even more yellow than this green, yellow-green that I have here, and I might be adding a little bit of white to it. Also on the same bushes, I look at it and I go, oh, but what about the dark area? It's very dark. It's very dark. It will look maybe a bit more like this. And also the rose bush that is on this side here is very dark. It's in the shadow. A lot of it's in the shadow too, so that makes a difference. This bush over here is a little bit more dull. Notice how here the greens are more yellow, more vibrant. And then this bush, the green is not quite as vibrant. And the way, of course, that you can do that is add a little bit of brown into the yellow green, and it will dull it out. And we'll think about that as we're going back in space too. And I know that this is quite dark up in this area, but we'll probably lighten that up and not have it quite as dark. Blue sky, blue, plus some white. And if I don't want it too bright, I can add some other colors. And here, the pathway. It's definitely warm, right? So my pathway is definitely on the warm side, but it's not one of these very vibrant colors here. So I know that I'm going to mix some brown into it. It's more of a orange looking brown. I think maybe like this one. And then the roof of the house. Notice how there's a little bit more red in the roof of the house, and it's also slightly darker too. Okay, all right, so now we've got a handle on what kind of colors we're going to be mixing. And I am going to go ahead and mix some of those colors up for us. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Blue, maybe a little farther down so you can see it. and I think about the value. What value is the sky going to be? If I squint my eyes and look at the photo, I notice there's clouds in there. If I just think about the sky blue itself, and here, right, the two lightest areas are the path and the sky. They're close. They're close, but because I would say go for a sky that's lighter than the pathway. Okay, so the sky, I'm gonna make it very light. And I know I haven't drawn onto my canvas yet. I'm mixing the colors, but I will get to the part of drawing on the canvas. If this is kind of going out of order for you and you're like, oh no, please draw on the canvas first. You know what, why don't I do that? Because otherwise you might feel like, well, now I'm not ready to apply the color. So I'm going to take this idea and sketch it onto the canvas. Remember, check the angles. If you are thinking, oh no, the something is not right, check your angles. Right? If I look at the photo and I see where the angles of things are going, I'm going to use a ruler so that I can get some nice straight lines on the house. A tip is to have the vertical parts of the house stay vertical. And in this case, most of the horizontal parts are going to be very close to just straight horizontal. So in that sense, this house will be very easy. Checking to see if I'm putting it in the right place. Yep, that's about right. Okay, thinking about how far down the house comes. Remember that I need to leave a big space for the bushes here. The really vibrant green bushes come up to about halfway. So my house cannot come down below that because I need to leave the space for the walkway. Okay, the bush on this side. The bushes on this side. Bushes in the front. Here's where that rose bush is going to be. And behind it, right, if I go up a little farther, then it looks like I'm going behind that, and it's also behind the house. So the bottom of the trees in the background can be a little higher than where the bottom of the house is. Okay, if I want the pool in there, I can put it in. Okay, and trees in the background. So there's an idea of dividing up the spaces for where we're going to paint today. Okay, I've already got the sky mixed here. I used the blue, the white, and I'm making it very light, like a number 1. And yeah, I think that's about right. Okay, so the other thing that was very light was the walkway. I thought, okay, I can compare that. If I put it maybe next to it, I can do a comparison. It is more of an orange color, but not bright orange. So if I put some blue in there to make it dull, and of course a lot of white because it's light. Let's see where we are. I think that's probably going to be too light. Right, if I compare it with the blue, I think, okay, maybe, let's see. Yeah, I think it could go just a little darker to have some more color in there. That means I'm adding more yellow, a little red, and a tiny bit of blue. I think it still looks too orange compared to just a little bit too orange. Okay, so I'm going to add a little more blue. That's close. That is pretty close. Okay, but how am I doing with my value? Good, good, good. Okay, yes, I have a number 2 on there right now, just because I want it a little bit darker than the sky. Okay, from there, the thing that is the next darkest that I see is the bushes up here in the front. So I think I will go to that next to make sure I can compare the values. It is a bright green, so lots of yellow with a bit of blue. And I think I will also need some white in this color. It is probably going to be too dark for what I want. Yeah, right now, without any white in it. Oh, okay. It's kind of like a 4, kind of, yeah, kind of like a 4. I think that I will put even more yellow and a bit of white. So this has to be definitely darker than my sky. Yes, It's darker than the sky. Good. Okay. And yes, I think I'm at about number 3, maybe 2. Okay, that will work. So the light part of the bushes, there will be a medium part, a dark part. I think what I will do is, so I know in the photograph it looks like the light to shadow area is cut pretty hard, but when we see these things in real life, it's not really like, oh no, it's a really hard cut. So I'm going to mix an in-between color, plenty of yellow, some blue, and as it's going into the shadow, I will make the color slightly more dull by adding just a bit of red to it. Okay, so that we can see it looks like a medium color. Let's see if it is. Yes, okay, that's a 5, good. And then I need a shadow color, something that's dark, that is quite dark, a lot more blue for the dark area on the bushes. Some yellow, some red. I may need more blue and yellow though, because maybe that was too much red. I still want it to look green, like a blue-green, not brown in that area. Okay, very dark. There we go, light, medium, dark on those bushes. And then, you know what, I think I'm going to start from here, applying some of these colors. And then from there, we'll take some of these mixes and make some more mixes that, are going backwards. So this color over here with the rose bush on the side, that will be very similar to this dark color that I have here. Let's see. Beginning with my larger brush up in the sky. Okay, so if I don't erase some of these lines that are in areas that I don't want them to be, well, if I cover it a couple of times, I think that line will go away. But otherwise, I can also use an eraser beforehand. To get rid of that line. And I can go over the line a bit too, and not be too careful about not going over the line, because then I can cover it a bit with the other color. Okay, now as I'm applying the color in the sky, if I want any clouds or if I want any variation in the sky, I can mix that color and work on it right away. Okay, I'm going to cover over some of the area of the tree because I will come back over that and paint over that anyway. Okay, but if I have some of my blue with just a bit more blue in it, I can do what I did on the ocean painting and make the area that's higher up a little bit darker. This tends to naturally happen in the sky. That the part that's above your head, is like during the day regularly, that part will be a darker blue, and the part that's closer to the horizon, oh, there's some blue over here too that I'm seeing right here underneath. Oh, so I want to make sure I do that. Okay, so anyway, going back to the slightly darker blue. Okay, that helps the sky to look like it's transitioning more. And then if I take a bit more white in the part that is down here closer to the horizon, that might look more realistic. Okay, I didn't change it a lot. Just a little bit. But if I don't like that later on, I can change it more. But if it works in the end, then I can leave it that way. Okay, next I will put the color of the path. This color is also quite light, but more of a orange brown. And I will go over some of these lines. So that's not really exactly right. The bushes on this side kind of come out. But if I go and paint in over the line in some areas, then I can paint over parts of it when I'm putting that color in. I know that if it's acrylic paint, you just wait for it to dry a bit and then you can easily go over certain areas with another color. If it's oil paint, you have to watch out a bit more and not put a very light area and then try to put a very dark area over it, because it gets kind of in the middle, the color gets mushy. Okay, I think I'm going to leave a space there for the pool. It has a nice color, a blue-green color in there that I can put in. And notice how it will look like a flat strip. We think of a pool, we think, oh, it's round or oval or rectangle or something, but in perspective, it gets flattened out and you just see a little tiny strip there. Okay, so, and as I'm putting this in, I might start thinking, oh, this walkway looks so dark. Don't worry, once all the other colors get on there, then it won't look so dark. So I don't want to second guess the idea right now. I want to leave it how it is and then change it later if I need to change it. Oops, I was almost going to cover up the pool. I'm trying to leave it there. now for some bushes. I'm going to go for the dark areas. Shadows on the front, the center there of the bush. And I will be somewhat more generous with the dark areas, because if you go from the dark and then you layer up the medium and then you layer up the light on top, then you'll still see some of those dark areas underneath. But if I start by adding the dark area and I just add a little bit, then pretty soon, when I'm layering things over the top, it gets covered up and then I can't see very much of the dark area. Okay, so that's one bush, the dark areas, and it's helpful if I try to connect some of those areas together. Okay, and then the next bush here, right, all of this to distinguish the one bush from the next one, right? The dark area is going to go down either medium or dark right here, and then the light is at the top of the bush. That will make it look more three-dimensional. Okay, and then the third bush back here. This part here is the darkest. And some dark areas coming up. And then one more bush over here. Okay, so that's some dark areas here. I'll also use that same dark color on this bush, but I'll change it when I move to the background. So here, where it's touching the other bush, right, all of that, that's the darkest area of this one. I look for dark areas. See how for this one it comes up like this. These ones, they're lumpy like this. This one comes up like this. So some of my lines can be a little bit more vertical, but I don't have to make them like stripes in the end, right? I don't want it to look like stripe, 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 because then it will look like, oh, it's something man-made, like a building. But if it's kind of blended together in the end, that will work. Okay, medium. I'll start back on this bush here again. The medium will touch the dark. So when we look at the picture, it might look like it's going just straight from dark to light. But it's helpful if you put a medium in between, because then it will look more rounded the way we actually see it in real life. A picture tends to make it look flatter than when we see it in real life. So above the dark is the medium, and then above the medium is the light. And I put some here. Okay. And I can move the brush in different directions to create the idea of the leaves going in different directions. Okay. Okay, so see how everywhere, oh, you might be able to see it. Let me see if I can zoom in on that. If it will work better. Maybe. Okay, that doesn't really show it very well. Let me try something else. I'm going to rearrange the camera here really quick. Okay, so I put the camera a bit closer and I put some of that lighter color on top. The camera is having a hard time picking up the difference between the dark and the medium. But if I move the lighting around a bit, I can kind of trick the camera and then the light and medium show up. So you can see what I'm talking about, that it has dark, medium, and I've just put a bit of light on top, and that's to make it look like it's turning. And I think that, see, I'm trying to trick the camera there a little bit, but I think that when I put the light on the top of the medium, then it may show up better. So I'm still on this bush on the bottom, and I'm going to try that. So even though it looks like the medium and the dark are a very close color, but you remember that when we looked at it, they're different, right? That's very different. Light, medium, dark, very different. So if you put it on and then you just trust that you're doing it correctly, then it will show up in the end on your painting. Okay, so I'm going to put some of these lighter areas in. So the light area goes on top of the medium, and if it looks a little bit too straight edge, then break up the edge somewhat so that it will look more like leaves. You can make the brush go in different directions and it will look more like the leaves. Okay, let's see. I'll try changing the lighting to trick the camera again. Let's see. Haha, okay. So you can kind of see what I'm doing there. And now I'm going to put the medium and the light on the other bushes. Oh, I didn't finish this one, so I'll finish the first bush here. The lightest area goes at the top, above the medium. And then you might be wondering, why did I do this? Oh, well, it's in the picture. That's another little piece of the bush that's bumping up right there. And that's why I have the light area down there. Okay, and if you try to keep your dark areas more together, then it will tend to look more like one solid bush and not like it's too jumbled up and you're not sure what it is. Okay, medium areas on the dark, and I cover over part of my dark area when I'm doing that. So that there's some overlap. Okay, and then I will add some of the lighter color up towards the top, and I will bring a little bit of it down, but not too much. Okay, so it looks kind of lumpy but rounded like a bush. Okay, I'll do those ones in the back as well. That was medium. Now I add the light, the very top parts of the bush. This is where the top of the bush is going to touch the color of the pathway, and I want to make sure that if my bush is supposed to be darker than my pathway, that the lightest area on my bush does not get lighter than my pathway, because otherwise it might look a little funny, like what? It's not sitting in the right place, it's not layering in the right place. And I can make that top edge more lumpy. I'll do that on this part too. Make the edge of the bush lumpy because it is lumpy. Not perfectly flat, unless somebody came by and just chopped the top of the bushes to make them flat, right? We had that in the other painting. Okay, so we have the bushes. They're round, and then we have this other bush on the side. But I was going to change my colors just a little bit and make them not quite as vibrant. That means I can take I'm using the same dark color, but I can take my medium color and add some more red to it so that it's less green. And I can also take my light color and add a little bit of red to it so it's not quite as green. Okay, so I just took my medium color and added a little bit more red. You can compare it to what you see on there already. Check and see, okay, did it get a little bit more red? Yes, mine got a bit more red. So for this one, I'm sticking with making the marks a little bit more vertical, but not just like a stripe. So it's still in pieces, patchy areas. And you can see how I'm holding my brush. For this one, it was more like this and different directions. This one, I'm having my brush, the flat part of my brush, is more vertical to make those kinds of brush strokes. Okay, and then I am also going to change the lightest color, which won't be quite as bright, and it also won't be quite as light. If I add a little red into that green, it will naturally take the value a little bit darker, which you will notice. So and actually it will tend to make it maybe a little bit too orange because I've just mixed a little red in there. Actually, that's not bad. That's kind of interesting. I like it. It's not quite like the photograph. The photograph is not quite so orange. It's a little bit more green. So maybe I will put just a little bit more green in there too. Because remember, that color had a lot of yellow, but only a little bit of blue. So once I added a little red to it, it made it very orange or slightly more orange. Okay, that's better. Not as bright of a like yellow green, not a yellow green exactly. More of a dull but still yellowish green. Okay. Then I will add that color. And remember that that color will be more towards the top. I might need some of that color again once I put in the back bushes to go over it, because some of my back bushes might cover a bit of the detail. In fact, I think it will. Okay, and trying to make it uneven, not all like a stripe going down, because the plant is not like that. Oh, some over this way a bit more, maybe slightly darker areas. And a little lighter on the top. We'll go way up in here, a tall bush. Okay, okay. Yeah, and I can already see I have some detail on there. I like that. I like that it has some lines, and I can work on it a bit more if I want to. Okay, that is the colors that I have mixed so far. Now I'm thinking also I need to change some of these colors as I'm going back. I need some bushes way in the background, but I don't want those bushes to be as light, as dark as the ones in the front. I'm going to change it a little bit. Let me change where my camera is again. So my dark green, my very dark green that I have in the front is here. It's a blue green, which I put a little bit of red into, but I don't want it to be as dark. I do want it to be a little bit more blue because I'm going back into the distance. So that color, I put a little bit more blue, but just a touch of white to lighten it up. Let's see what I've got. I might have made it too blue. If I did, then I can add a little yellow in there. Okay. What do I think? Is it lighter than that one? Not too much. I'm going to add some yellow because it did end up rather blue. Okay, and just a tiny bit more white. Little tiny bit. Okay, now it is lighter. It's still darker. This is still darker than my medium color for the bushes in the front, but it's lighter than the dark area of the bushes in the front. If I check it, it is about a number 6 here. So it's still the shadow area, and that's going to be used back here. Now, if you look at the bushes in the back, you might think, oh, it looks like it's all just dark dark, dark. But remember, some sun is going to be shining on the top, and even if you don't see it exactly like that in the picture, but in real life, if you look, you go, oh yeah, it will be a little bit lighter right on the top. But let me put in those bushes. It's going behind that bush. Okay, and I'm going to leave a little bit of space at the top where I change the color just a bit. Okay, under the overhang. The bottom of the bushes. That's underneath the overhang. That's part of the tree as well. Oh, I'm getting some of the white in there. Fix, fix, fix. Okay, and part of that tree is going above there. Okay, and if you want the bushes in the trees in the back to look even more three-dimensional, you can use 3 colors, just like the bushes in the front, to make it look like the form is turning. Okay, the bottom of the rose bush, I want my rose bush here to look 3D as well, so I will add some dark area to that. Next, I will mix a medium. I can use this medium here that I used on this bush and just add a bit more blue into it to make it push back, and a little bit more white. Okay, you'll notice that this color is a little bit more yellow than this one. So here's the color that is for the shadow of the trees, but when I get to the light area, it will get a little bit more yellow. So if that green has a little bit more yellow but is still kind of dull, then good. Okay, but I want to make sure it is a little bit lighter than that green. It is. I think it could use just a little touch more white, but I have to be careful not to get it as light as the sky. It has to be still definitely darker than the sky. So, right, my sky was a number 1. This is still very much darker than that. This is number 4. Number 4. In fact, I don't even want that top part of those trees in the back. I don't want it to get to a number 2 because I don't want it to look like it could blend in with the sky. So I think, yeah, in the video you can kind of see here, this one, then this one. Let me try this trick here. Kind of. You can see the difference. So the top parts of the trees, I'm going to use that lighter background green color. Okay, and I still didn't mix that pink yet. I didn't make it yet, but don't worry, I am getting to it. I put it on the rose bush here, but I will make one more, a little bit brighter color green for that. Okay, and if I have some interesting looking brushwork there, it will help to make it look more like a tree in the background, right? Like pieces are coming out instead of having it look flat. Okay, I'm gonna do something a little bit more yellow and a little bit lighter. So it's not like this, right? Not as bright as that, but just a little bit more. That will help the rose bush to stand out. Looks like I need to do it a little bit more because you can't really see it yet, right? It's kind of blending in. In the picture it's blending in too, but I don't want it to blend in. I want it to stand out more. So just the top of the rose bush, if I do that, oh, it will start to pop it out a little bit. Okay, and I'll use that for this bush. Use the same thing here on the very top of some trees. Okay. And I think that I've probably put too much of the lighter area, and I really should have a bit more of the darker area on the trees. So I'll put it back in there. So that it doesn't lighten up too quickly. Better. Okay. The roof. The underside here, the pool. We've got a few more colors to mix up. Here is the color I had for the pathway. We're going to use a similar color. It's still within that orange type of range. It's going to be a bit more red, and it's also a little bit darker, so if I add a bit more yellow to that color as well, that works. If you think about it in terms of your color chart, we're going for something more like this, right? Here's orange, and then if I add some of the brown and some white, but not make it too light, I have this orange looking roof. Okay, definitely need more yellow in that. And right now it's super bright. I think I will make it just a little bit more brown by adding blue, because I want it to be like a red-brown roof instead of a bright red roof. But you could have a bright red roof. It will attract a lot of the brighter, the more vibrant the color, the more attention it will attract. Let's see. Is it dark enough? It should be lighter than the trees, right? Lighter than the trees, darker than the path. Okay, that can work. This is, since this is the roof of the building, when I get to the edge of the roof, then I want to be careful. I go slowly. So that I get a crisp line. A lot of times we blend it. But for this one, because this is architecture, this is a building, a roof, and we want a nice sharp line, then I put the edge of my brush right at the edge of where I want it to go. And if I mess up a little bit, I can just fix it, paint over that part and fix it. Carefully, right to the point. Getting to the point of the matter. Okay. And now we see this part and this part. It is kind of like this color, but more in shadow. It's like as if I took that and then added some gray to it. So I'm going to put some blue in, and it is actually darker than the roof. It's a little bit darker than the roof. If you squint your eyes, you can see. It is in the shadow, so that's why it's more grayed out. So let's see it here. Good. Right? It's a little darker than the roof and a little bit more blue. This, I'm going to use the edge of my brush here too. So edge on one side, edge on the other side. If I'm switching hands, because I can do that if I work very carefully, but if that's hard, right, you can just turn the painting, right? I can just turn the painting and then now I don't need to switch hands to get one edge and then the other edge of the column. So one edge, other edge, and it's nice and sharp. Nice sharp lines. Okay, other column. Okay, there's some underneath here. Which goes back over to this bush. And also this part here, underside of the overhang of the roof that's coming towards us. Oh, I need to make sure. Nice sharp line there. Okay. Okay, I think I will adjust the color of the roof a little bit to make it maybe slightly more yellow. I think it will look better. Slightly more yellow and also just a bit lighter, but still kind of orange. Especially right here in that transition area, because see how the value is too similar. It's too similar there, but I need to change it to make sure that there's a separation. I think that area needs to be darker. I'm going to try to make this area a little bit lighter. Oh, now we can see it. Okay, but also I will make this edge that's coming over a little bit darker by putting a little bit more of the color into my mix here. I don't want it to turn green though. Okay. There we go. Yeah, darker, especially right by the edge. It's getting lighter again. That's what happens if I mix just using my brush. I don't make enough color. So it's not the best way. The best way is to use the palette knife. In fact, I'm going to switch and do that because it works much better when I use the palette knife. Okay, a little blue, trying to keep it orange but dull. More dull, not very bright. Okay. That's better. Now I have enough. I have enough of the color. But when I mix it just using my brush, then I don't have enough. Ooh, that's very dark. I think it works though. Okay, a little bit of a shadow under here. I'm going to use it. It makes a nice little shadow. Makes it look more 3D. If there's a little bit of the shadow right in there. Okay, and then I also need a dark area under here. This is not trees. It's the shadow going into the house. So it doesn't need to be green. I will use something that's a little bit more brown and maybe about the same darkness as this. That way it pushes it into the background, even though it looks quite dark going in there, but I want to push it back in space. So when I mix it, I'll put it right here. Mostly blue and red, a bit of yellow, and a tiny bit of white. So that it's not quite as dark as that one. Yeah, we can see the difference there. Good. That will work. nice sharp edge. With my brush, the top and the bottom, all the sides of that shape. Okay, that's going into some of this green, but I can go back over it with a bit of that green as well. Okay, I've got most of my colors. It looks like I'm still missing a piece of grass here and my pool. The grass, it is light like the tops of these, but just not quite as bright of a green as these ones are. So it will be mostly yellow and a little bit of blue, tiny speck of red, a bit of white, so that when I compare it, it should be not quite as bright as this, but still a yellow green color. That way I can put it in here and it looks like I've got some grass right behind the walkway. Okay, my bush is right there on the grass too, so I have to make sure I'm getting the grass all around the rose bush. So that actually can make it look like the rose bush on the bottom is blending in too much, but if I use some of that darker color that I have for the background trees right there on the bottom of the rose bush, that will help it to pop out on the bottom. So light versus dark on the top of the bush helps the top pop out. Dark versus light on the bottom of the bush helps the bottom of the bush to pop out. Oh, value. Okay, and the last thing that I need to make sure that I have in here, I left a space for the pool. So I need to mix a color of the pool. That's a very pretty blue-green type of color. Plenty of white. Notice how it is a medium color. It's darker than your lighter colors and it's lighter than your darker colors. So I'm going to aim for about a number 5 when I mix that one. Blue, if it's blue-green, that means a little bit of yellow. Not too much yellow. And since I don't want it too dark, I need to add some white. Let's see if I got it. Did I get it? Number 5. Yeah, good. Okay, and I hope I mixed enough. Very quickly here. Okay, now this might just look like, oh, it's a random piece of something on the ground. What is it? Is it a pool? I don't know. And something that can help it look more three-dimensional is think about how the edge of the pool in the back is going down and you have a little strip of the shadow. So if I take a bit more of the blue and mix it in to that color to make it darker. I think I might need more because I had plenty of white in there, so it's not darkening too much. Okay, that's better. Okay, so I'm making a little bit darker color. That way, if I put it right here to give it a shadow, now it looks like it goes down. Oh. And the curve, I just put a little bit of curve right on the end of the shadow. Oh, yeah, right? Just like that. Just like that. And then it makes it look more like there's something there. It's a little bit more 3D. I think it's the inside the pool. It's even a little bit more green than I've got it. So, yeah, and a little bit lighter too. Let me try that. Whoop! I covered up part of my walkway, but I can fix it. Okay, this is the basic parts, except I did say I was going to put a pink color for the rose bush. I've been using a big flat brush like that. That can be hard to put a little bit, some little tiny roses on there. So when I put the roses on, I'll use a smaller brush to add them. Pink, easy. I take red. I add some white. And check my color. Check the value, right? Is it going to look like those? The roses are lighter than the rest of the bush. They're a light pink. Ah, it works. It looks like it. So I can use that color. If you put too much white in there, then it will look like the rose is part of the sky because it will poke a hole in there. So you still want it darker than the color of the sky. And if I put a few on, it's pretty. A pretty rose bush. One more right there. There. Oh, the flowers are blooming. Okay, let's take a walk and enjoy the flowers. Okay, now all of this is covered. What I'm going to do is I will turn off the video, but I will add a little bit more detail, say on the roof up here. I think that will help it out. And a little bit on the walkway. I have a little space right here where I needed a bit more of the dark area of that bush, and I didn't quite finish off that area right there. So I'm going to put a few more details on there, some lighter highlights on these bushes as well, and a few more details after I turn off the video. But this is the main idea of it. And you can also look at the picture and add your own details. If you want, you can add those chairs that are there, but I know that's really tricky to add those chairs. So if you feel like, oh no, that is too difficult, then don't add that. because you know, don't, if it's already working well, don't add something that maybe is really challenging to add. But if you think, oh, I can add that, it will help, it will look good, then go ahead, you can add those too. Or you can add something else. Maybe a person is back here by the rose bush, or over here. Maybe there's an animal. Okay, remember that with perspective, the person or the animal will always be upright, straight up and down. So if you put a person in here, unless they're leaning over to smell the roses, then they will be vertical, right? Otherwise, if you put them in like this, oh no, they're falling down. Or if you put somebody on the path here, remember they're vertical, not leaning like this. Otherwise, they'll look like they're falling down. Okay, that is it for this recording, and I'll look forward to seeing your painting.